that steer charge in.
How are you all doing tonight? My name is Bigbobbedboi and welcome. Wanted to take a look at melee weaving while leveling. I haven't seen a ton of info on this, even after looking around a lot. I found one video where someone said it might be good, and Icy Veins had this to say. What? Why would I want to be tanking multiple mobs as a hunter, and what is my pet doing? Thanks, Icy Veins. Now, I want to know two things. If melee weaving while leveling is a gain over AFK auto shot, and if it is, when is that actually worth doing? So I've kind of been testing out melee weaving on multiple hunters while leveling them up, meaning I already have some idea how it works, but that is not enough. Let's try to get some better numbers. On an alliance hunter I've been leveling here, I bought a good weapon for melee weaving and leveled up my polearm skill. So here's the gear I'm using for this. Heart-seeking crossbow and this polearm are the most important parts. They are pretty good weapons for what you pick up while leveling. I took this route through these Naga with each test. There's some variance in their spawns, but not really anything that I can do about that. I tracked my DPS and XP per hour while doing this and ran each test for around 10 minutes. These mobs can slow you or net you, which is super annoying and I concede not really conducive to melee weaving, but I needed an area where there were no other players or bots killing my mobs, but also an area where I wouldn't get attacked by Horde, and this was a place that fit that criteria. Let's talk about BM testing first, because BM is awesome for leveling, and I recommend most people level as BM. First, I just went through as normal. Send pet in, Hunter's Mark, Serpent Sting, and AFK auto shot. Mana permitting, we threw out multi-shots as well. I finished the gauntlet at 78k XP per hour, doing 153 DPS. That's not bad. The biggest advantage this playstyle has is sustain. I never have to stop to drink or eat and didn't even have to manage. So even though my DPS isn't the highest, the sustain brings the XP per hour up. It's also nice because it's really easy. I can do it while I'm watching TV or some shit. And a quick breakdown of my DPS here. My pet was doing 33% of my overall damage, a tiny bit low for BM, but that's still a lot. 77% of my damage was auto shot, only 13% being Serpent Sting, and 9.2% was actually melee. Now I only meleeed here when I pulled aggro or the mob ran and got near me, so it's pretty surprising I did that much melee damage. Okay, let's move on to the next test. This time I'm throwing in melee auto attacks, so pet in, Hunter's Mark, Serpent Sting, and then weave auto attacks into my auto shots, and then Raptor Strike when mana permits instead of multi-shot. And it was actually slightly less XP per hour. I did get unlucky with some of the nets, so I would say it should be a little higher and be about the same XP per hour as AFK auto shot. But the numbers I got were 73k XP per hour and 144 DPS. You're probably thinking, that doesn't sound right. Wouldn't adding in melee attacks mean more damage? And it should. But there are a few things stopping that from being the case. The biggest is my pet losing aggro. He's a few levels lower here, but as I've said, I've tried this while leveling as well, and it always happens. Adding in melee strikes means you're going to do more damage and your pet just can't keep aggro, even as BM. When this happens, you're stuck just meleeing instead of melee weaving, or you can FD, which then stops you from doing any actions and ruins your mana regen. The only times where aggro is guaranteed is when he's Bestial Wrathed or Intimidate Stunning. Also, quick shots. When Imp aspect of the Hawk procs, I suspect that's a breakpoint with this gear level where weaving and clipping auto shots actually becomes lower DPS than just your normal AFK auto shot. Pretty disappointing if I'm being honest. I mean, it really gives me the shits because this would be a pretty fun playstyle. And good practice for melee weaving since you don't have to worry about putting in aimed or multi-shots. Just both autos. A quick numbers check shows auto shot was doing about 56% of my damage, melee doing 19%, Serpent Sting doing 13.5, Raptor doing 7.1, and multi doing 4.5. I would have liked to use Raptor more, but I was already having mana issues. I decided to go back and rerun this test because that bad luck with nets and slows was pissing me off, and I could not stop thinking about it. I also stopped weaving when quick shots procced. This was better. It netted me 76k XP per hour and 147 DPS at the end, with melee accounting for a lot more of my damage this time. Alright, well, let's try another way. As I mentioned in the melee weaving guide, I love 2-target melee weaving. It's a lot of fun. So maybe that will work out better. Well, you can probably guess how this shit goes, right? It's more DPS, and it's more XP, but at the cost of sustain and resources. At a point, I almost hit 100k XP per hour and was doing over 200 DPS. The downside was I had to use a shitload of bandages, and even 2 health pots. In one case, I would have died if I hadn't used that health pot. I ended at around 83k XP per hour with 167 DPS. Auto shot did 51% and melee did nearly 30. However, I actually think this could be improved upon. If I was more proficient in 2-target melee weaving, used my mana better, pulled targets better, I would expect it to be closer to 87 or 90k. In fact, pulling targets is probably the most difficult part about this, because you want mobs in the perfect position so that you can melee one and shoot the other, but you also need to be worried about moving to the next group of 2 mobs to do that. This really got me thinking though, if 2-target melee weaving is doing the most damage and the most XP, let's respec survival and try these 3 tests again. But the results were kind of shit. DPS and XP per hour were lower in the survival tests across the board. Even 2-target melee weaving, which really surprised me. I thought 2-target melee weaving would be the saving grace of survival. The biggest issue I had doing this with survival was pulling aggro. And I guess that does make sense if you think about it. We drop improved aspect of the hawk, and that should make melee weaving easier because we're shifting our damage away from haste, but then our pet loses a ton of damage. Unleashed fury, ferocity, frenzy, gone. Even bestial swiftness, gone. Intimidate, gone. Bestial wrath, gone. While we gain humanoid slaying, sure-footed, killer instinct, and lightning reflexes. Savage strikes is really good as well, but that won't affect our pet holding aggro since it's only on our melee target. This means even on a ranged target, it's super easy to pull aggro. If you're tanking 2 mobs, you are fucked. Probably not going to die though. Amazingly, survival is good at survivaling. Serving. But it's going to force you to eat, drink, or bandage a lot more than BM, even if you survive tanking the 2 targets. Alright, at this point I'm kind of unhappy. I'm feeling a little down. I want melee weaving to be good while leveling, but the results just aren't there. Let's run a few more tests on a lower level hunter. Maybe melee weaving shines at lower levels where you have less gear, stats, and talents. So here's the gear this level 20 hunter has. Not a great bow, it's pretty fast. Melee weapon is not bad though, it's pretty slow. Not a lot of talent points yet, but he is spec'd survival. 20% crit to Raptor is going to be pretty nice. Alright, we're in Stone Talon, and I'm going to use these Venture Company guys. A lot of them are ranged, so melee weaving should be pretty easy. I'll essentially run the same route with each test, just like I did in the previous tests. First up is just normal AFK auto shot. That netted me 47k XP per hour, doing 41 DPS. Obviously, it was really smooth. Never had to stop to eat, drink, or bandage. My damage spread was also about what you would expect. Now, moving on to the single target melee weaving. I finished with 49k XP per hour and 41 DPS. Pretty much the same as AFK auto shot, although a little bit higher. But that means I'm still really disappointed. Weaving was a little tough because this bow is fast AF. But having a bow this fast means my melee swings, especially Raptor, are more valuable than an auto shot. So I really tried to prioritize them Raptors. Damn, did they hit hard. But Raptor crits were doing like 40% of the mob's HP, and they were my level. Like before, threat was still an issue. I'm doing enough damage that it's really easy to pull off my pet after the first melee or Raptor and end up tanking. But it wasn't enough of an issue that it really became dangerous. And on a troll, it's actually really kind of good since that means every time I go to pop zerking, I can do it when I'm at low health, and then I just rip through mobs for 10 seconds. And 2-target melee weaving was, well... Okay, these aren't as annoying as those Defias fireballs, but these goblin fireballs are a bitch. Doing 2-target melee weaving with mobs near your level is just a bad idea. Even with mobs that are green, the resource drain is huge. Doing it with higher level mobs, not a great plan. I tried it a second time, and while I didn't die, I got bogged down by having to bandage or eat and drink all the time that it just wasn't worth it. Okay, I've done a lot of testing here. What is the conclusion? Is melee weaving worth it while leveling? Really, it depends. As I said, I tried this out while leveling up as well. You're probably wondering, what about marks, right? I tried it, and it was the worst of the three by far. Aggro problems were off the fucking rails. I tried weird shit too, like just a serpent sting and auto shot, then melee them the rest of the way. I tried switching to melee when the mob was at low HP and starting on the next at ranged. The only time I saw any significant XP per hour or DPS gain was with 2-target melee weaving, and again, the resource cost there was huge. But think about AFK auto shot. It's really easy, very resource efficient, and also really safe on a PvP server. But, like I said, it depends. Single target melee weaving would be worth it if you have a really badass melee weapon and a shit bow, which is kind of how things went on my troll hunter, and why I got a little bit more damage out of single target melee weaving than I did AFK auto shot. As a troll, it's also probably worth it to take some damage from 2-target weaving so you can get the full effect of your zerking. But there are also things I can't really test. What about melee weaving on an orc with an axe? You've got weapon skill and blood fury, plus there are a ton of good axes you can get while leveling. Corpse Maker, Night Reaver, Executioner's Cleaver. That might push orc melee weaving into another level and make it worth doing. I don't know, I actually thought about not even publishing this video. I really hate that I couldn't come to a grand conclusion like, yes, this type of melee weaving is always good, do it. I really didn't come to any strong conclusion. But I think the testing alone is important enough, and you know, I'm really not looking forward to revisiting this topic for BC Classic. However, I can tell you that when I level more hunters, I'm just going to AFK auto shot, and if I get a good melee weapon, I might Raptor Strike for the fun of it, because I do love seeing those big, thick, yellow Raptor Strike crits. If you enjoyed the video, I don't know who would enjoy this, hit that sub button and like button. They really help the channel grow, and I appreciate each and every one I get. But that is going to be all for this one. I really appreciate you all watching, and I will see you all for the next one.